Hello, everybody, and welcome to the White Hatter YouTube News Show. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Darren.
Let's get into some updates. First update is, once again, we are doing the Tech Tuesdays live show on Facebook, which you are hosting again.
I am. This one is going to be on sharenting. I'm going to speak briefly. We have a full presentation on that we do for parents, but I'm just going to take a snippet of that and kind of talk about the issues of sharenting and why this is important in today's world, that we parents have got to be aware of it and what we can do to help minimize it.
Yeah, so that will be available on Facebook by the time you watch this.
Yeah,
so go
and I'm
check
not going
that
to fall
out.
into the trap that I have in the other ones when I say it's tomorrow when in fact it's not.
Yes.
See, it took me like 4 shows to kind of figure. And by the way, Keegan,
yeah?
our summer student, the last rendition, the last video that we did, our talk show,
yeah?
He took a good shot at me over my mathematics, or what I should say is the poor use of my...
the power of the editor.
Anyways, it was a nice one. That was good, especially when he's got me kind of looking at the camera with all these numbers floating around, and then he does the addition and subtraction, which didn't equal what it should have equaled. So, Keegan, I know you're watching this right now because you edit all our shows. Payback is coming, my friend. Anyways,
Let's talk about some news topics.
yeah, let's do that. In the news.
First news topic, which is probably the biggest tech news topic of last week, was Apple's announcement of scanning iPhones for child sexual abuse images.
Dum.
Yeah, there was a lot of people on the internet talking about this particular subject. A lot of confusion because it's not a simple solution that Apple has implementing.
No.
So there is some confusion, but let's get into the basics. So there are 2 versions. One is under the parental controls feature for parents and caregivers, and the other one is iCloud scanning. So
right. And that's where all the issues with a lot of these privacy gurus are kind of focusing on, right?
Yeah, and some individuals on social media are confusing the parental features as a default feature.
Explain.
Which is not. So let's talk about the parental feature. So right now, for parents and caregivers, you can create a child Apple ID, which is a subset of your Apple ID, which gives you some control over your child's Apple activities, which is great. We recommend parents to have Apple IDs. Problem is, most families don't even know that exists anyway.
That's right.
So, so basically, if a young person, if the iPhone detects it's sexual material, if the child receives it or sends it, it will give a notification. It may blur some things, and it will inform the parent or caregiver only if the parent or caregiver has enabled that feature in the child Apple ID, which they have to create, and it's all opt-in. So
what if the child has already got an Apple account ID number? Then you can't resort them back, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So.
And which is most of the case anyways, working with parents that we've worked with. That's
and this
most
is why
of the case.
educating parents on this very issue is so important, so that, if they are Apple users and using the ecosystem, that they want to make sure that they sign their child up first using the parental control so that they get the Apple ID and all that stuff. And we talk about that in other shows. So we also talk about it in our free webbook on how to go about doing that.
Yeah. So that's one that's not what most people are going to be worried about, and that's not going to affect most people, as most people aren't even going to use that feature anyways.
Which is unfortunate because parents should be using it.
They should, most certainly.
Yeah.
But most don't even know child Apple IDs exist.
It does exist.
And it does exist.
It does exist.
So the next sort of pillar in this move...
Oh, pillar. That's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one. Pillar.
Is iPhones, using their advanced processing power, will, when you upload photos to iCloud or you send messages through iCloud, anything that involves iCloud.
When we talk about iCloud, are we talking about this magical place in the atmosphere where there's like unicorns and rainbows and all this kind of cool stuff? Like, what
Apple sure does think so.
That's true. What is an iCloud? What is it? What's a cloud? Other than these things that are up in the sky? Because a lot of people, when you say it's up in the cloud, that's where a lot of people think it's going, right?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I think nowadays people are kind of getting more up to speed, given all the discussions around
maybe
privacy.
you younger ones. Maybe you younger ones, but I can tell you right now, for the older boomers out there like me, they still think that this cloud is this magical place. So what is a cloud?
Basically, well, the Apple iCloud is Apple's online digital storage, much like your email or your Google Drive. It's just Apple's version of that.
It's a server, right?
It's a server, and it has some good features. You know, you can upgrade your iCloud, pay monthly. You can have automatic backup. So if you lose your iPhone, for example, you can recover your iPhone by downloading all your data from the iCloud.
Right.
Now, the iCloud is not. Apple tends to make itself seem as the privacy conscious individuals.
Privateer.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Privateer? Keegan, do some checking on that. Make some fun of me again.
Pop in a dictionary definition.
There is no word as privateer, I don't think. Right? It's private.
More private.
More private.
There you go.
Yeah. There's some fodder for you, Keegan. Have some fun with that. He will. I know he will.
So, where was my... right. So, iCloud is not an encrypted space. There's been a lot of, battles in the legal system with Apple versus U.S. law enforcement. And, Apple says it won't unlock iPhones because it can't. But a lot of times we see warrants that go out to iCloud, which then Apple hands things over. So, yeah, iPhones are encrypted, secure devices. iCloud, not so much. So make that clear for Apple. iCloud's not an encrypted environment. So pictures going to iCloud. Yet.
Yeah.
So how does all this scanning happen? So what your phone will do is it will scan pictures before they go into iCloud. And it happens on your phone. Not the scanning and analysis doesn't happen on Apple systems. It happens on your phone.
But let's be clear. They're only scanning pictures that meet a specific hashtag that is being identified as CSAM, right? Child sexual abuse material.
Correct.
It's not scanning like, well, I guess it is
only images that are previously known to law enforcement,
right? Which
have been scanned, analyzed, and give a unique code based off the color of the pixels, the density of pixels, and all that data associated with pictures,
which will now trigger.
Yeah, only pictures match that particular code. Now, people are suggesting, why don't you just manipulate the picture a bit, then it doesn't detect it? That's potentially a workaround.
Yes.
So, and people arguing, and privacy advocates are arguing, well, this is building a potential back door into the Apple ecosystem. Because we've seen Apple, in order to maintain presence in a economy, China, will kind of make some exceptions to certain governments in order to keep their products in market.
Yeah, so the fear that I've been reading on this is that there are some privacy advocates saying, what is to stop now, say, the U.S. government from putting pressure on Apple to add the same type of search function to look for things like terrorists or, other issues that may be topical at the time that could be a violation to privacy?
Probably not a big issue in democratic societies like we have here in Canada, North America, United States. It's more so targeting more authoritarian governments.
Well, let's not fool ourselves. I mean, we've more and more information is coming to light where even in democratic societies, government are doing things that maybe are skating privacy laws without us knowing, right? So I mean, but I get your point.
Yeah, but in terms of Apple's, as a publicly traded corporation,
right?
There's a lot more risk of doing that,
right? In
terms of public image,
right?
Especially Apple being the privacy advocates that they say they are,
right?
So yeah, and yeah, that's the challenge, and we know there are now Apple servers in China that Chinese governments do have access to,
right.
And Apple says only Chinese data is there and no North American data goes there.
Right.
So Apple is kind of splicing its ecosystem into meeting certain regional laws and policies.
Yeah, we're seeing that with regards to GDPR as well, right?
Yep.
Where, things in Europe, there have to be a certain threshold. So as a result of that, these big companies like Apple and others are now kind of hiving off what it is they do to meet specific laws in the regions in which their product is being used.
And the question is, Apple being an American organization
right.
should more likely be following American guidelines, policies everywhere they go because their headquarters are in North America.
I don't disagree with some of the critics out there. I mean, who is going to police Apple to make sure that there is no slippage, right? That there is no sliding where they're getting pressure from, these governments to do things that they shouldn't be doing, right? Like, is there going to be oversight, and who's going to be in control of that oversight?
Well, Apple's been smart on this because, as I mentioned earlier, they've hived
What did you
off,
just say? Apple has been smart on this?
in terms of working. They have good lawyers in order to operate in areas as best as possible.
Right.
So, like we said earlier, they're hiving off their organization to certain regional based servers, which is a way of doing that.
Right. Overall, though, I think what they're doing here on this specific issue, I actually don't disagree with, right? Like
they've done it the best way possible for this.
There's always going to be a risk, right? Like, I mean, and the issue is, if people don't like what they're doing, don't use their platform.
And again, this kind of goes back to what I said right in the beginning, is Apple's iCloud is not inherently an encrypted environment anyways.
Right.
People think it is, but
Right.
it's not.
Right.
So,
see, one of the fears I've been reading is that because Apple is taking the lead on this, what people are going to do who are maybe trafficking in CSAM, which stands for Child Sexual Abuse Material, right? CSAM, C-S-A-M. Mm-hmm. I got that one right, Keegan. So what they're doing is they're specifically targeting that. Now the fear is that those who traffic in CSAM are going to move to a different platform, being it an Android, which is now going to push Android platform or Google platform into doing the same thing, right? It'll become.
doesn't Google redo that?
I don't think they do it like what Apple is planning it to do, right? So there's going to be this cascading effect. And therein lies some of the concern that some of the privacy advocates have, is that, this is going to be a big deal, right? And to which I say, you know what? I get it, but I think sometimes when it comes to privacy issues, privacy can work both ways, because privacy can also work to the benefit of the criminal, right? The individuals who are using and trafficking things like CSAM, which is a horrible crime, and using the privacy to protect what it is they do. So, it's always a fine balance for sure. But personally, I don't disagree with this issue. Is there a risk? Sure there is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But, if people don't think that people are going to be watching closely about what happens with this, you're fooling themselves, right? So, but again, if you're not happy with what Apple is doing, move to a different platform. Right?
Or don't use iCloud.
It's not a right to be on their platform. It's a privilege to be on their platform, right? So if you don't like it, if you're concerned about it, move to a different platform.
I think people are pointing out the hypocrisy of Apple in a way, because Apple, on stages say, we are the most private platform out there, and your data is your data, and all that stuff.
Is.
So people are pointing the hypocrisy of what Apple stated.
But where do we draw the line about allowing the privacy to protect the criminal?
Well, then Apple should change its branding to not be the private platform, to say we are
more private.
More
I just about said the other word. Private.
Yeah, more private.
Right. It's just, I'm getting a little sick and tired of people, over the issue. We're privacy hawks here. We're privacy hawks. However, privacy, if it's now being used to the advantage of the criminal to prey upon the innocent, at what point in time do we say enough's enough, right? And so, am I willing to give up a little bit of privacy issues surrounding the protection of the most vulnerable? Yeah, I am. Should there be checks and balances put in place to ensure that Apple and these other big vendors out there aren't abusing this? Absolutely.
That's the part that's not being fulfilled.
Correct. And so
until such time that part's being fulfilled, the precedent to that should not be.
Yeah, and so I think the Overwatch should be a combination of both civilian, Apple, and government, right? Like a bigger group that I don't think we can allow Apple to police themselves. We can't let government. It's like policing here in British Columbia, right? Like we have a civilian oversight board that looks at things from an independent standpoint to make sure that police are doing what it is they should be doing and not doing, and holding them accountable when they aren't. So I think the same thing should happen here as well. But again, I think when it comes to privacy, it's like the whole battle over encryption, right? Like if everything, everybody's moving to encryption on the messaging platforms, right? Mm-hmm. Which, I get. But now what's happening is the criminal element knows that and are now using those platforms because of the encryption to their advantage.
But criminals have been sending secret cryptographic messages forever.
But those private encrypted messages were able to be intercepted and unencrypted at some point in time. The
But it's
problem,
not even like traditional mail ciphers. You mail a cipher, and, right? So I mean, there's ways to hide messages since the beginning before tech, anyways.
right? But it's more prevalent now, right? And what I'm seeing personally as an online investigator is how the criminal element is using the influence or the sphere of privacy and encryption and going, yes, just keep it going because, it's helping me make millions and billions of dollars. So at what
Well, that's
point
because
in time-
governments failed.
Yeah.
Governments have to understand that they abuse their power, which then is causing this private revolution. So there is some
Private revolution with respect to the criminal element trading CSAM over encrypted
I'm talking about
networks?
I'm talking about the majority of internet users.
Oh yeah, I'm not
I'm
talking
talking
about
to the majority.
Uh-huh.
Should the minority of individuals who are doing bad things online negatively impact the majority?
Well, I think the answer to the answer is it depends, right? Like it depends. I mean, specifically on this issue, which is CSAM, I do think that although it's a minority doing it, it's going to affect the majority.
Well, Apple's doing this in the best possible way. In that it's only looking for the processing does not happen on their servers, happens on your phone.
Right.
And it's only looking for particular images that are known to already be in circulation based off of the coding hash of the image.
Right.
So Apple's doing it in the best possible way.
Right. It's just, I am starting to get a little frustrated, and we are privacy hawks here, we really are. But I'm starting to get a little frustrated at how the criminal element is now using that to their advantage, right? And profiting huge by preying upon the most innocent, right? So we got it. We got to deal with it somehow. And is there any easy answer to this question? No, there's not. But I do think Apple is doing the right thing here, morally and ethically. Are there some bigger concerns that could happen down the Sure, but that's where proper overwatch needs to take place by an independent third party, whoever they are, to ensure that there is no slippage.
Yeah, and if Apple starts doing anything else, that will be on Apple's.
Yeah, and I get back to the point,
shareholders
if you
to
don't
deal
like
with.
it, go to a different platform, right? Like it's your choice, right? It's like, again, these are not right to have, they're a privilege to have, and if you don't like the platform you're on, then move to a different platform. But the question is, are these other platforms going to adopt the same type of process? My belief is, yeah, they will be, because now the pressure will be on other platforms to do the same thing.
Or you go to a platform that's not in a North American jurisdiction.
That too, right? That too.
Which ultimately means, do any of these implementations matter? Because obviously criminals aren't going to be using iCloud for any nefarious reasons.
Well, specifically for CSAM, right?
Yeah, but if Apple extends this program to include other things, then...
See, and they're saying they're not. We don't know that. But, I mean, specifically for CSAM, what I see the criminal element doing is moving away from the Apple platform, right? They're going to move to a Google Place platform to do that. So now the pressure is going to be on Google.
I would suggest they're probably not even using that anyways.
Yeah, well, they may be. It depends upon the device they're using, right? Like, are they using an iPhone device to take pictures? And, well, it's one of the biggest platforms being used, right? So, again, if you're not happy with it...
Maybe accidentally, someone forgetting to turn off or on the iCloud backup.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. But for me personally, although I'm a privacy hawk, and yes, there are some questions specifically to this and how it could be abused, I think at this point in time, given the intent of it, it's the right thing to do.
And they're doing the best possible, and they're implementing it in the best possible way.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Good discussion.
Next one. Scammer services will ban anyone for Instagram for $60.
What?
Okay, so interesting. So it's a news report from Vice, kind of investigating some dark web services where people offer, you give them $60, you pick an Instagram target, and they will get that person banned from the platform either because they're a business competitor, you have a grudge against them, or for whatever reason. Now, the price does fluctuate based on the popularity of the person you want to target, but they have various policies and scripts put in place. Give them money, they'll ban someone for you. By manipulating Instagram's TOS and the ways they handle reports of abuse on their platform. And this is not something new. I mean, we've had some people who've messaged us who said, "Hey, White Hatter team, I've lost access to my account. I forget the password. I used to throw away email. I can't log in."
Right.
And we said to them, "Well, unfortunately, you can't do it unless you submit like your photo ID to Instagram, and that could take months to do. The only way to really delete that account is to, one, get a bunch of friends together and report the account as bullying, and hopefully Instagram will notice that and take it down."
Or reported that it was created by somebody under the age of 13.
That too.
Right.
So, I mean, we've seen people who have used this for themselves,
Right.
but this is a service that one method that was highlighted in the article was what the person will do is create a mimic account, a clone account, and then say all kinds of horrible, evil, nasty things, report that to Instagram, but they would link to the original account that's not the clone, and then that's the one that get taken down.
Right.
So nothing new. It's just interesting that a more mainstream article took some time to highlight this and actually interviewed someone who was running a service, making all kinds of money doing this. So
Interesting.
Interesting.
Right? Interesting. $60 you can get a competitor to potentially take down, depending upon the size of the
obviously, if you're going
right?
to take down Coca-Cola or Nike, maybe
it's going to cost you big bucks.
It's probably going to be something a little more than that, because normally those brands have a rep with
and the
Facebook.
other thing is you could pay all this money to do that, and there's no guarantees, right? Like there's just no
But
guarantees.
$60, it's
Right.
like,
Yeah, that's true enough.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, that's just addressing the problems in social media companies and website companies that don't have really thorough policy addressing services. You know, it's against their policy, but what do they do to address that is using algorithms, and there's not a human reviewer for every instance of a report.
Right.
That's like financially impossible.
Right. But it's interesting again how basically people in the dark web are basically gamifying something for profit.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. Google Chrome
This is
no longer
interesting.
to show secure website indicators.
that's an issue, isn't it?
Not really. So this is probably an issue for like maybe older folks who come from the generation of being taught internet safety from the perspective of you want to make sure you got a website to have a little lock icon in the top corner of your browser.
Did you just say older people? Is that me?
I didn't say your name.
Okay, so oh yeah. So what do you mean by that?
All right.
This
so,
is the lock icon, right? Thing that you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
So in the old days of internet
Okay,
security,
let me share, because I'm the older people.
in the old days of internet
we
security,
were taught that if you saw the little golden lock up in the URL, then that told you were on a secure site.
yes.
That's what we were taught.
Yeah, and that was based off the logic that, fraudulent websites wouldn't go through the effort of securing and encrypting their network and that type of stuff.
Right.
Well, now encrypted websites you can get for free now. That's been that way for a long time. So what Google is now implementing is it will warn you if you're visiting an unsecured, unencrypted website.
But it won't tell. Okay, continue.
So it's security by default.
Oh, okay.
So
although they will no longer show you if the website is secure or not, if you do hit an unsecure website, Google will still notify you that you've hit an unsecure site.
And I think based off Google's statistics and reviews, because it's Google, not over 90% of websites on the internet have some sort of HTTPS security encryption on them anyways. Fraudulent scams or not. I mean, because you had a lock icon on your website did not guarantee it was a safe website.
Right.
So really, is there a point of showing the lock icon?
What about there were two things we were taught, the older generation. Look for the icon, the lock icon, but also look for the HTTPS.
Those are the same thing.
Yes. So that's still no longer a valid thing to look for? The URL that starts with that ends with HTTPS.
The lock and those are the same thing. The lock was just a symbol of that.
Right. So just because the URL has an S on it, never make the assumption that it's a secure site, because that can be spoofed.
Yeah, sure. Your data from your computer to the website's encrypted. So someone if you're on a network, a public network, people can't necessarily see that data easily.
And you were saying to me that it's easy to purchase an HTTPS site.
It's free,
right? You can get
get free certificates to encrypt your.
So if you were a criminal element and you wanted to create a site to start your phishing, it's easy enough to get an HTTPS site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of interesting.
So what's the message here to the viewers, especially the older people? Don't depend upon the lock and the HTTPS.
Yeah, well, we've been teaching that with individuals for a long time now. Make sure there's a lock, but there's no guarantee. Right. So this is just kind of, because most websites have this anyways, there's really no need for this symbol.
Okay.
But it will warn you if you are on a potentially unsecured website.
Thank you from the older generation.
Okay. Next one. Speaking of scams, BazarCaller, the malware gang that calls and talks you into infecting yourself.
That's kind of a bizarre title.
It's a weird title.
Get
yes.
that? Bizarre.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. That's a boomer thing. Do you like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what's this one all about?
Okay, so it's kind of investigating a new, not new, but a different way of thinking of scam calling. So traditional scam callers and fraudulent call centers will call you going, "Hi, you owe money to the CRA or
usually
IRS.
They'll say, "Can I please speak to the business owner?" That's usually what they say.
Yeah, or whoever.
Right.
They'll call you and
Call use.
Call use.
I hope Keegan picks that
Call
one
use.
up. I hope
Call
Keegan
use.
picks that one up. So they'll call you. Yep.
And
I hope he makes fun of you. What is it? I mean, it's just because I'm the boomer, he wants to make fun of me. Just saying.
So they'll call you, you'll get angry, you'll hang up, and all that type of stuff.
Yep.
So a different way of thinking of this is what if scam callers call you, they leave you a message, and they'll say, "Hey, we have an invoice number here, you got to pay this money, call us back." They'll give you a local number, because it's really easy to spoof local numbers now, not that hard. So it makes it sound a little more trustworthy.
Just for those older people who are watching, what does spoof mean?
Hide, mask, fake.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what?
Just considering you're on this whole kick of the older people. Just saying. Thank you for explaining what spoof means to us boomers. Continue.
And basically, so where was I thinking? Oh, right. So they'll leave you a number, and it sounds more legitimate. Instead of someone calling you, trying to harass you to give you information, they'll just go, "Oh, hey, call us back at this number." Okay, that sounds a little more reasonable, because that's not really the traditional scam you think of. And then this is good for scammers, because people who call back,
you've hooked them,
are people who have already kind of accepted your scam to a degree. So you may not need to have as many staff in your fraudulent call center, and people who are calling you are more worth the time.
Right.
So interesting way of thinking about it.
So my question to you, what's the message here for people to help defend themselves against something like this?
Do your due diligence in regards to scams. Scams are getting really good now. Yes, they still have the really, really bad scams that are just very clearly scams, but scammers are marketers.
And so, if you get a message from like a CRA or any other company that you're a part of, rather than connecting with them directly via reply emails or phone numbers that they have, it would be in your best interest to find the real phone number and phone them directly.
Precisely.
Right? That's basically the defense here. But I mean, with convenience comes vulnerability, and it's just convenient to click on the link or phone the phone number that they give. But again, to ensure that they are who they say they are, our recommendation has always been, most companies will not connect with you online to do that. So now they're moving to the phone to do this. But still, this is the hook. Once you bite, they got you in. So rather than dealing with them via the phone number they provide, you should connect directly with that company, that organization, that agency, whoever they are, and phone them directly.
Precisely.
Did the boomer get it right?
You got it.
Thank you.
And that's our show.
Oh, thank God. Right? I'm sure Keegan is going to have fun with this one as well. Aren't you, Keegan? I know you are. Right? So, safer. Just saying. Did you know it's only like 4 weeks before the start of school?
Yes.
And we still got a couple of projects on the go, right?
Yes.
Are they going to be done in time?
I hope so.
In fact, we had a lot of projects on the table. I remember at the beginning of the summer, this boomer, when he was talking to the millennial, was saying, that's a pretty big list. I don't know if we're going to make it. Do you remember that discussion?
And I told you, I'm going to get as much done as I can.
Right. And
in the sequence of priority that I set.
Right. And so basically what I had recommended is coming to fruition, right?
I completely acknowledge I wouldn't get everything done on my list.
But I basically said you're probably going to get the 4, 5, 6, 7 program, right?
What are you leaking? Stop leaking stuff.
Just a little leak. But it's, kind of, the boomer was right? Come on, hit me. Come on.
I agreed with you.
Okay. All right.
I said, here's the order of all the projects we have to get done.
Now, having said that, I mean, what you have done and are continuing to do is going to be amazing. I mean, just amazing, right? And what we're doing and how we're doing it, we'll be announcing that hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Everything will come together right at the last moment. There's a lot of things that rely on other projects, integrate with other projects. It's a whole thing. But
but it's pretty cool what you're doing and how you're doing it and some of the new things we're going to be doing. So, I mean, it's just funny that, blow this boomer off quite a bit. But what I had to say at the very beginning of the summer.
But I acknowledged, I said, I'm not going to get all this done, but here's the order sequence of things, and I'll get what I get done.
You still haven't said, Dad, you were right.
I did say I said I acknowledged that.
Oh, but saying I acknowledge that and saying, Dad, you're right. Just say, Dad, you're right.
Yeah, you were right. But I acknowledge that it's a synonym for you were right.
A synonym for you're right.
Keegan, pull up the dictionary.
Whatever. On behalf of myself, I'm Darren.
And Brandon, thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.